Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast for December 1st, 2024. This is episode 339. By the way, this is episode 339. I accidentally called yesterday's episode 339, but yesterday was 338. This is stand-up comedian, actor, and improviser and dreamer Paul Green coming to you, sharing my journey as I pursue my dreams in the hopes that perhaps you will pursue yours as well. So, I am recording this episode in Sedona, Arizona. Beautiful Sedona. I drove up there today to do a show that I was booked for. And the show really ended up being quite different than I had anticipated. I actually didn't know what I was getting myself into at all. I had never been booked on this at this venue before. The venue ended up being a movie theater, and it seems like a movie theater that maybe plays like old movies, kind of that sort of vibe. The movie theater itself was really nice, though. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Sedona. I mean, the whole town is incredibly nice. You know, it's very touristy, really nice hotel, resorts. And I got booked on this gig by a gentleman who is a booker out of Los Angeles who I met several years ago, and he's been starting to book me on more and more gigs. He's booked me on 3 gigs this week. I was in New Mexico a couple days ago, and then this gig in Sedona, and then I'm going to be in Pine Top tomorrow night. So, tonight's show, again, didn't know what to expect, and overall went very, very well. The theater that we were in had a really nice stage. Really, it was just nice. Like, everything was nice. Really good sound system, good lighting. The volunteers who were helping out to put on the show were amazing. Didn't have a huge turnout, but a decent turnout. Maybe about 30 people. And the theater sat, I think, about 100 people. But it was good. I mean, the start of the show was a little rocky. We didn't have a host or an opener. It was just me. I was actually the feature act. And then my buddy Josh Novi was the headliner. And there wasn't really like a start to the show. There was a woman who was running tech who was fantastic. She was running sound and lights. And she just had a microphone backstage, and when it's time to start the show, she said, "All right, everybody, your first comedian is Paul Green." And the audience didn't even clap. Like, it was just like a very abrupt, start to the show. I mean, she was great, but, being able to like stand in front of a crowd and get the crowd engaged and get them clapping and get them excited is, it's a skill set. I think it's something that maybe gets taken for granted. When you're at like a comedy club and the club just does a really good job at getting the show started, getting a good music going, turning the lights off, getting the audience clapping, having, a voice of God, getting everybody ready and focused on the stage. And then, bringing up the comedian or the first host or whatever. There's an art to that. And, comedy clubs do that really, really well. Because they understand that, they understand the importance to get the energy up and to get the audience focused and ready for comedy. And, that was just an element tonight that I don't think they either understood or knew how to do that. It didn't really feel like there was a whole lot of like discussion about, how the show was supposed to run. Me and Josh just showed up and talked to this sound person, and again, she was great. She was, knew her stuff, knew how to do the sound, knew how to run the lights, but that doesn't mean that, she knows how to start a show. That's a very different skill set. So I kind of felt like maybe it was unfair that she kind of got put in that position. So I just walked on stage to a silent stage and had to start just from ground zero, getting the audience engaged, and went into my material. My material went well. I always get a little in my head because I'm single, and a lot of these shows that I'm doing, everybody in the audience is married or older. And, I'm doing a bunch of jokes about like Tinder and stuff. And I'm like, ugh, is anybody in this audience relating to what I'm saying, And, they still laugh. I think that even though maybe it's not what they're going through, I think that they can still follow the logic of what I'm talking about and understand my point of view and still laugh at, my point of view and my experience, even though maybe they're not in that mindset. But when Josh came out as a married man, he started doing a bunch of material about being married, and they were definitely laughing louder. So, yeah, that's fine. Is what it is. So, I did about 30 minutes, which again was really hard to do cold, but I started to get going. I started getting warmed up, and then, closed out my set. And then I brought Josh on, and I made sure I got them focused. Big round of applause. And then Josh came out, did a really, really nice job. And then, as a little bonus, he brought me back out on stage, and we talked to somebody in the audience, and then we improvised a song about them, which is sort of our MO when we do our midlife crisis comedy show. The two of us, but this time, just at the very end of Josh's set, we talked to one guy in the audience, and he was there with his wife and a neighbor, and he was fantastic. We had a great chat with him, and then Josh and I improvised a song. And one element that was a little bit more fun than when we usually do the midlife crisis comedy show, because when we usually do the show, so far, I've been at the keyboard. I bring my electric keyboard, and I play sort of the backing music, and then, me and Josh will improvise songs about our guests. But I didn't have my piano set up this time, but Josh had his guitar. So this time, Josh actually provided the music, and we were both singing, but it kind of freed me up a little bit. And I got to tell you, it was really fun to just have to do the singing part and to not have to try to focus on creating the music, on my keyboard. And pretty much how it's gone is whenever Josh and I do this, the people give us a genre. I try to figure out on the keyboard what sort of drum beat and then what sort of instrument I'm going to play for whatever the genre of music is that they suggested, and so I'm kind of in my head busy doing that, and then I start playing, and almost always Josh would take the first verse because I'm still kind of like in my head thinking about it and, trying to figure out the music part of it. So this time, because I didn't have to worry about the music, I just had a blast, because then I was able to like really think about the interview. And then also, Josh was playing kind of like a rockin' sort of guitar riff, some guitar chords. And like I was really able just to focus on the singing and the energy and the rhymes and really putting together like, fun, creative lyrics about this guy's life. So that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. And actually, after that, I was like, dude, Josh, I think you should be bringing your guitar and we should be splitting the music duties. And he agreed. So that'll be fun. We'll be able to add another element to the Midlife Crisis comedy show, which we actually have a handful of gigs coming up. So at Thursday, we're going to be at JP's Comedy Club in Gilbert, which is our hometown. And then on Friday, we have a private corporate gig in Phoenix. And then the next week, we're heading up to Salt Lake City for another corporate gig. And then I need to turn around and come right back home because then I have a corporate gig on Thursday. And then I will be headlining JP's Comedy Club that Friday and Saturday. So I'll tell you what, I've got myself a pretty busy performance schedule coming up here the next couple of weeks, but very excited and having a great time. And tomorrow I'm going to wake up and get some work done. And then I actually got another gig in Pine Top, Arizona at a casino that I will actually also be doing with Josh. So super, super fun. So with that, everybody, those of you who follow the podcast know that I like to sort of split the time on this podcast. First part, just catch everybody up on what I'm up to and what's going on with my journey and my dreams as I pursue comedy. And then the second part, I like to commentate on whatever self-help book I'm reading because I do find the self-help industry very helpful. Who would have thought? And I just find the more that I can study and read people who have experience and wisdom and knowledge about navigating life, finding joy, finding happiness, finding fulfillment, finding abundance, finding ways to live the life that you desire, the life of your dreams and all of that. I listen to as much of that stuff as possible because Lord knows there's plenty of negative, discouraging information out there. So, as I just started to think about, okay, which book do I want to approach next? I was in Audible and I was sort of looking around. And then I was just like, how many Audible books do I have in my library? And so I went through my entire library and just started asking myself, which one of these books have I maybe already listened to, but maybe I could afford to listen to again? And lo and behold, I found the book that I wanted to revisit, and that is the iconic, the one and only, The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown. And oh my gosh, am I already glad I did it. I forgot just how powerful this book is, how well written it is, how thoughtful it is, and just how much truth is in this book. And if you don't know the book, definitely listen to it. Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown. If you don't know her, go check out her TED Talk. Her TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, I think is the name of the TED Talk. Her first one is one of the most viral and watched TED Talks of all time. I mean, this video has millions and millions and millions and millions of views. I've watched it plenty of times, and it is just so powerful. And I think it was just really good for me to revisit this book at this point in my life. And so I will be going through that book and just sharing my thoughts and insights as I do. And in the introductory chapter, as she's talking about a little bit of her journey, which was she started out as a social worker and then as a researcher, and she started researching vulnerability and also this idea of shame. So she would research this. It seemed like her research was more anecdotal, like she would just, interview people and, um, people going through tough things in life. And then she just started to sort of quantify and qualify all of the data and that she was gathering on people's thoughts around shame and vulnerability and all that fun stuff. And then she had a nervous breakdown, and then she started talking to a therapist and started helping her with being more vulnerable, and really illustrating the fact of the matter is that as human beings, as ruthless as we can be and are towards each other, and as much as there is war and hostility and conflict in the world, that the reality is what we crave more than anything is genuine, authentic human connection. And I've been talking a lot about this on previous episodes about how the idea that fame and fortune made anybody happy is a complete lie and a complete delusion. But what makes any human being genuinely happy, according to all of the research and all the studies, is genuine, authentic connections with other human beings. And that no amount of money or fame can replace authentic relationships. And one of the elements of being vulnerable is that she talks about is being authentic and not caring what people think, which is so fascinating to me because it actually seems counterintuitive, at least to me, because for me growing up, I was such a people pleaser. And I never wanted to say or do anything that might be hurtful or offensive to another person, even if it is what I really thought. And what I didn't realize, first of all, is just how incredibly unhealthy that is. And secondly, that it would create so much drama and friction and unhappiness in my life when I never felt like I could really honestly express myself and my thoughts and beliefs without getting, punished, or without being judged, or without being told that what I think and feel is wrong or makes me bad or whatever it is. And in the book, Brene talks about that people who are able to effectively be vulnerable and have meaningful relationships, that she calls those people the wholehearted. She calls it wholehearted living. And then she gives 10 like bullet points of what it means to be wholehearted. And number 1 was, be your authentic self. Don't care what people think. And again, that seems so counterintuitive because it's like, oh, we want connection with people. And, we want to, to be vulnerable. And, sometimes being authentic or saying what you really think or feel may offend people. And so it's like, well, if we're going to be, vulnerable so that we could get connection, but then we're going to be authentic and not care what people think of us, isn't not caring what people think, isn't that going to lead to disconnection? Isn't that going to lead to arguments and, and friction and all that stuff? And I've had some serious awakenings, in recent years. I mean, this is a long time coming. When I started to realize, I was like, oh no, my unwillingness to say what I think, or my unwillingness to be vulnerable and express what's true to me, even if it potentially means hurting somebody's feelings. Now, I'm not suggesting that, I or anybody else, proactively go around and, be critical of people or whatever, like, oh, you're overweight, or whatever it is. But that's not really what I think she's talking about. I just think being authentic and not caring what people think really is the greatest sign of courage, for the very reality that it is going to turn people off. And there may be people that do legitimately get offended. Now, again, there is a big difference between speaking in a manner to deliberately be offensive or just speaking what is genuinely in your heart to be authentic to you, and understanding that if I'm being authentic and my intention is indeed authenticity, my intention is not to cut down or to diminish or to hurt anybody else, that being authentic actually will drive certain people away, but it's the people who shouldn't be in your life anyway. And but it will also attract the people who should be in your life. So, one of the main reasons I even do this podcast is to challenge my own insecurities and my own fears and my own inauthenticity, which I've been so inauthentic so many times in my life. So many times I've, haven't spoke up or said what I really wanted, or, said what I really thought, because I was more concerned with trying to say what I thought the right answer was to appease somebody. Oh, they asked me a question. Okay, what do they want to hear? Well, they probably want to hear this. So I better say that, because if I say the other thing, then that may not be what they want to hear, and then they'll be mad or they're upset, or then it's going to lead to conflict or contention, So that idea of being the authentic self and not caring what people think that's a big one for me. I've got a long way to go. To be my authentic self, but I've become much, much more so in the last couple of years, and I've been a lot more willing to say, like, no, this is what I think, this is what I feel, and I'm going to be authentic with what I think and feel, and anybody else is willing to take offense or not take offense, because I know that the intention with which I expressed whatever it is that I'm thinking or feeling was not to be hurtful or not to be harmful. It was just to be me. And got a long way to go, everybody, but I'm on this journey and I'm working on it. And I'm very, very excited to be revisiting Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability and sharing my thoughts as I start to work my way through the book again. But for now, that is this day's episode for December 1st, 2024, episode 339. Go out there and be vulnerable, everybody. Be your authentic self. And I will offer my more insight and commentary on that book and its chapters in the days to come. All right, everybody. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you tomorrow.